The St. Louis Blues are forced into an impossible decision heading into this year's offseason, with key players set to hit the open market, rumors circulating star players. St. Louis has a tough decision to make, and it has major implications on the team heading into this offseason. Darius, we got a lot to break down in this episode. Before we get into that, if you're part of the 88.9% that's watching this and you're not subscribed yet, it's completely free to hit the subscribe button. It helps us out a bunch, and in return, we'll keep you up to date on not only your St. Louis Blues, but the rest of the National Hockey League as well. But with that, we'll hop straight into the first topic today, where we do know St. Louis did unfortunately lose in 7 to the Winnipeg Jets, but this is a team that's looking and inspiring to make a run going into next season to be back in the playoffs. I mean, looking at some exit interviews, we've seen Robert Thomas speak on going in. Players have to want to come here. I think we showed that. Everyone that's in a room knows what a great culture we have and really enjoy their time in St. Louis. I think that's spreading more and more. I think that's a part of it as well. Now, just looking at this, Darius, I know this is just a small quote from the segment. I'll put in the entire quote from him as well. But what is your thoughts on Robert Thomas and the St. Louis Blues almost looking like a free agent destination heading into this offseason?
Well, I think it's a big thing. If you look at a couple of years ago, a lot of players wanted to go play in New York with the New York Rangers for that reason. Obviously, living in New York, I mean, the Toronto Maple Leafs as well. A lot of players that come and say that the culture is really good there. There's a couple other teams, right? You want to be involved in that culture because it's a winning mindset and a brotherhood and stuff like that where you can win. So I think they're trying to reestablish that in St. Louis because I don't know if that ever really left, but obviously it's not the same championship caliber team that they were in 2019, of course. But I think they're getting there and they're laying the foundation, that's for sure. So for Toms to come out and say something like that, I think that they're trying to build something that will attract, big name free agents, and not just that, like obviously whoever they end up drafting will want to come here, develop here, play here kind of thing. So I think that's kind of what he's talking about. And they have a lot of really interesting decisions to make this offseason in terms of, maybe trading star players. We've talked about Kyrou. I'm sure a lot of fans, are on either side of that. That's for sure. We've seen that in the comments. And then obviously I've seen a lot of fans saying to fire Nick Leddy into the sun. So we're going to get to that in this episode as well. But there's a lot of movement going on. So they have a lot of decisions to make. And, who do they end up bringing in is the other thing. But it all starts with the alignment from ownership to the GM and the future GM and Alex Steen and obviously coaching and Jim Montgomery. And I feel like they're getting to a place where it is all in alignment. And that is a recipe for success to win a Stanley Cup.
And I mean, just diving into some players that are going to hit the open market, we know Ryan Suter and on the back end, of course, at goaltender, Hofer as well. Now, looking at these two guys going into it, let's touch on Ryan Suter to start. 40 years old. We've seen Suter play all 82 games this year, 15 points. In my opinion, Suter is more of a seventh defenseman. We know he's not going to come in and eat top line minutes anymore or top pairing minutes. We've seen that kind of in the past, but in my opinion, Darius, Suter would be a guy that'd be interesting to bring back. And of course, as I said, Hofer is another guy that needs to be signed. A 904 save percentage. It doesn't tell the full story. As we've seen the run they had in the second half of the year being a huge part, Binnington's Robin basically at this point. But what is your opinion on two of these guys hitting the market? I know one of them is going to be a high priority, but what's also your thoughts on maybe bringing Suter back as that seventh or sixth defenseman?
Yeah, I kind of like that comparison, actually. We'll get to Binnington in a second, but the Batman and Robin thing, like that's a good comparison for the streak that they went on because a lot of people, even us, were talking about Binnington, but Ofer was right there, pulling his weight as well. But in talking about Suter, I think it's an interesting, a lot of people are going to be very quick to say, he's 40, get rid of him, like let him go to free agency, sign with another team. But if you bring him in on a very, low risk contract, maybe league minimum or something like that, or maybe a little bit more, and he comes in and he's not eating up too much cap, maybe you do bring him back in to be that seventh defenseman. I mean, you're going to be without Torrey Krug now. You know that for sure. That was a question to start last season, but now you know that he's not coming back. So having him in as a seventh defenseman wouldn't be a bad idea because, again, you can't question that, he played all 82 games. He is an Iron Man in that way, right? It's not like he's, having a lot of injuries and he's out of the lineup all the time. Like, he can come in, play, do his job, and do it pretty effectively. And he's an older presence as well. He's been there. He's done that. He's been in these high pressure situations in the playoffs before. So he can help out some of the younger guys coming into the lineup, at least presumably coming into the lineup next year. Obviously, there's going to be some turnover, but I think that he would be a good presence there in the dressing room in the organization. So I wouldn't be too quick to like dismiss him. I think that there is a world where they can sign him to a low risk contract, bring him back, and he can make a difference because he was almost averaging 20 minutes a night in all 82 games that he played. So I would bring Suter back, maybe not as again playing full time or anything like that. Maybe he can, and if he can, that's fantastic as a 41-year-old or going to be 41 next year. But I would bring him back as probably like a seventh defenseman.
And I mean, even going into the forwards after touching on that, we know there are key guys that are going to hit the market, and one of the names is Fasco. We've seen how well he played in the Stanley Cup playoffs. 31 years old, he is at the end of his contract. This is an interesting contract where you might see a long-term deal come in with a cheaper cap hit. We'll touch on some of the guys that might be moved out. Kyrou's at the very top. You can see him there as well. But with Fasco, he was a great piece on that bottom six for the team, only 31 years old, not having the most points, but a big physical body. The big thing watching the series, it seemed like when he was throwing hits, they were all bone crushing. We've seen him really set the tone in multiple games, but in my opinion, this is a guy, if you can get him back on a 2 to 3 year deal at 2.5, 3 million, I would go for it. I don't know if you feel the same way, Darius.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting situation here because, like you said, like bone crushing hits. He's a big physical body. If you do let him walk, who replaces that? Is it Dvorsky? Well, he's not going to bring to the table what he's bringing, and obviously he was part of the WTF line in the playoffs as well, so that was fun to watch. But something that is very unique with the St. Louis Blues team is we're only talking about 3 free agents because that's all they have. Everyone's signed long term, and I think that's actually a very good thing, and they have some flexibility in that. So you have the cap space. I would actually re-sign him because if you want to, recreate some of the magic that you had this year, and obviously their goal is to make the Stanley Cup playoffs again next year at this point. They don't want to repeat what happened in the early stages of this season. I would bring him back because this is a guy that can help you win. He scored a big goal in the playoffs. We saw that, right? So in game 7, obviously it didn't go the way that St. Louis Blues and St. Louis Blues fans would have wanted, but he's a guy I think that you can win with. So I would consider bringing him back. But like you mentioned, I don't think it's going to be a low risk deal, right? You have to consider that. So it's probably going to be a long-term contract, which can get a little scary when a player's in their 30s. And obviously it brings the cap hit down a little bit, which helps. And there's deferred money and all this stuff that other teams are using now. But I think it's an interesting thing. I think you look at bringing him back, you look at the dollar amount, but if it's too much, then you have to let him walk. But then you have to find somebody that is going to replace what he brought to the table. And I'm not sure it's a rookie at this point.
I mean, talking about the replacements, we know there's a lot of guys on this team that are Pye offense. We've seen Cam Fowler come in, leading the team in points. Once again, the best trade this season. But when you're working your way down, 2 names that a lot of fans are talking about, and for good reason, Jordan Kyrou at number 10 in scoring for this team with 3 goals, no other assists. We've seen Justin Falk step in with 3 points as well, a goal and 2 assists. What is your opinion? And I know a lot of fans are feeling a lot of different ways about Jordan Kyrou. What is your thoughts on Jordan Kyrou maybe being moved out? You can bring up younger guys in Dvorsky. We know Bolduc is a guy that wants to get farther up in this lineup. Snuggerud looks like a top 6 lock. What is your thoughts on moving on and maybe adding more depth pieces or just getting future pieces for this team?
I think it's hard to replace players that bring what he brings to the table in this league. And you have one locked up right now, long term still. And now that the salary cap is going up significantly every single summer, almost $10 million every single summer, and you have him locked in for that number, I feel like it's going to age probably a little bit better. I don't think he's going to dip. I think the biggest question mark is can you win with a player like that in the playoffs? That's been the biggest question from some fans. So I think if you're the Blues, you really consider it because you can only move him up until July 1st of this year, and then his no movement clause kicks in. So you have to at least consider it and ask that question. And I think if you are the Blues, probably don't trade him because, like I said, to trade him away to add some more depth pieces, it doesn't really make sense. You can't replace that scoring rate that easily in this league. So you don't want to take a step backwards from where you are right now. So, I'm going to put my foot down and say that I wouldn't move him, but I do think that a lot of Blues fans would like to see him moved. And I think that the Blues have to at least have the conversation, look at all the advanced analytics, look at where the team is at and where they want to go and say, do we actually believe we can win with this player? And if the question, if the answer to the question ends up being no, then you have to move him. You have to move him before July 1st. So I think things are going to get a little crazy. Obviously, we'll keep you up to date on the channel, but I think there is a world they still move him. But personally, I wouldn't because I think they're going to come to the conclusion of where are we going to find 80 points from another player at that cap hit for the next, 6 years.
And I mean, the big thing looking at, we know Alexine is set to take over as general manager in 2026-2027 season. So if he sees a different picture of this team, if Kyrou is someone that doesn't look like he fixed the long-term goal of what Steen wants to build here, if he wants to move on, we could see him really just going to Doug Armstrong and saying, listen, you have a year left. We should start implementing some of my players, some of my ways, bringing in these guys. It's going to be quite of an interesting offseason with all the young talent coming out, seeing it from just the playoffs alone. Jake Neighbors' name that we probably don't even talk about enough. There's so much young talent on this team coming up, currently impacting it. It's going to be a crazy offseason. But what's your guys' thoughts on this? What's your thoughts on maybe moving on from guys like Folk or Kyrou? Would you rather keep them, move them? What type of package would you like in return? Something that helps the future or something that helps win now? Go ahead and leave a comment down below. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friend. We'll be back with another episode, so keep your eye out for that. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Darius, and take care.